Hello, everybody. Hi. Welcome to the armor making basics for EVA foam. My name is Saul. I am Wind Raven. Um,
My name is Erin. I also go by Lucky13.
and well, we're going to introduce ourselves, tell a little bit about ourselves. Together, we have over 15 years of experience making art, making stuff, costumes, and props. I've been doing this for 8 years. I started in early 2012, but I was doing a lot of the behind the scenes work. I did some work for Microsoft, some work for Disney, some work for 343, the creators of the Halo games, and our cosplay kind of took off for us, just as a fun hobby. And she's the painter of our little partnership.
Yeah, so he'll come to me with designs and building all of the base shapes, and I actually have a bachelor's in fine arts, so when it comes to the painting and finishing details, that's where I come into our creations.
So today we're going to talk about the materials, the tools you need to make your first armor, your first prop, the process, the painting process, the finishing, the details, and pattern making or pattern using, because that's one of the biggest steps, at least for a lot of beginners. So let's get started. And if you guys have any questions while we're at it, raise your hand, and we'll try to point you out. Okay. So for the tools, real quick, to begin your first build, the basic tools that you could get away with is just a heat gun, a way to cut, which is the blade, and a way to glue, which is glue. My preferred method of gluing EVA foam is contact cement. It is toxic, so you want to do it outside. But it's once you get it done, it won't come off. That thing is on for like ever. The way to cut foam, it depends which one you use. Some of the foams are softer, so it's going to dull your blade a lot faster, and some of the foams are more dense. So it depends which type you get. It depends the box cutter you want to get. I use just a regular box cutter from Harbor Freight, which is $1.50, and you can get the blades for a pack of 10 for also like $1.50. So all the materials, you can get them on the cheap. But like I said, depending on the type of foam, if you're using a dull foam, it will, a softer foam, it will dull your blade very quickly. I'm talking about 10, 15 cuts before you have to change your blade. But instead of doing that, I get a blade sharpener, which a lot of people do. And that one I got for close to $15 at Amazon. Any other sharpeners will do just fine. You just sharpen your blade and keep going. The heat guns, again, they're going to be anything between $12 to $40, depending on how much of a heat you need. My heat gun is $19. I got it from Harbor Freight. It's been serving me well for almost a year. I replaced my other one, but any heat gun will do for you. Now, if you guys want to get into more advanced tools, the wood burning tool, which is also the hot knife, that would help you get a lot of the small details cut. A lot of the once we get to the details, we'll go over that. But it does a lot of engraving, a lot of scoring, which helps bring more dimension to your prop. Obviously a cutting mat. You don't want to cut your surface; those you can get them anywhere. And a respirator mask is very important. Like I said, contact cement is toxic, so you want to do that outside or on a very well ventilated area. But a respirator not only helps with the fumes of that, but also when sanding, when it's painting, spray painting, you get a lot of dust in your lungs. So you don't want that. So a respirator mask goes a long way. If you're doing things outside, you may get away with it if you're doing like maybe a few props here and there. But if you're starting to make a lot of armors like we do, a respirator is a really good investment for your health.
If you use the respirator, can you do it inside?
Yes, but
depends on how much you want to clean up afterwards.
Yeah. So the purpose of a respirator is to not get anything in your lungs, but you're assuming at that point that you're making a lot of mess. So if you do it outside, it'll be a lot easier to just do it.
If you do it inside, I would definitely suggest opening a couple of windows. just so that it doesn't like soak into any fabrics that might be in the room.
Or linger the smell, because also it's a strong, bad smell.
Oh, it stinks.
Yeah. Um,
Definitely a fan. Yeah.
yeah. Now the contact cement are two of the main ones that I've come across. There's several ones, but Barge is the one that people talk about the most. It is the strongest one. It is the most. It's the one that's used to glue shoes together. So it's leather. It's going to be the strongest one you find, but it's also the most expensive one. So a quart, it's going to cost you about $32, $35. I use the Wellwood contact cement, which you can get at Lowe's. It's a quart. It's $12. So it's a third of the price for the same amount, and it's just as strong. I mean, for what you need it, you don't need anything stronger than that. Another way to glue to things is the hot glue, which is your basic craft making. Let's glue stuff together. That works great. The only thing is that it's susceptible to heat. So out here in the sun, in Texas especially, if you leave your prop in the sun in the car a lot, it will melt. It will melt the hot glue. Contact cement, it won't melt it, but it will shape the foam. So regardless of what kind of glue, I don't suggest leaving your props in the car, especially in the summer. Now, when we come to finishing the prop, you're building details and you're connecting seams, and we're going to pass around one of the helmets and this gun, and you'll see that some of the seams don't really connect that well, because when you're working with cutting your pieces, you may not get the angle correctly or whatever. Everybody makes mistakes. I'm sorry, I stepped out of the microphone. Everybody makes mistakes, so you don't leave perfect seams. The quick seal, it's a water-based sealer for you to apply to the seams to just make them fade away. Once you apply it on it, you put a little bit of water with your finger, just run it across. Just keep in mind that once it dries, it's not sandable. So, and this you can get at Lowe's and Home Depot, which I assume you can get at any other hardware store. Now, for finishing your prop, you finish building your prop, you've collected, you've assembled it, everything's glued, ready for painting. The next step is to seal your foam, because your foam is an open cell material. So if you start painting right off the bat, it's going to absorb a lot of paint. So it's going to take you maybe 15 to 20 coats to just even start painting your prop. So we seal it up. First, you apply the heat gun to seal up the prop, and then you apply 2 to 3 coats. They suggest 2 to 3 coats of Plasti Dip. It's a spray can. It's a rubber coating. You can get it at Walmart, Harbor Freight, Lowe's, any other hardware stores. You apply 2 to 3 coats, and it will seal like this rubber coating. And then you can start applying your paint, which it turns into maybe 1 or 2 coats of paint instead of 20. And then once you get into more special building, a Dremel is going to be one of your best friends. A lot of the sanding, a lot of the curves. I'll show you some pictures where I use, especially the organic looks, because I built second form Frieza from Dragon Ball Z, and a lot of his armor is rounded. So you can either sand it by hand or use a Dremel, which is going to save you a lot of time. Again, with something like this, you want to do it outside and with the respirator, because it's going to create a lot of dust, a lot of foam dust. Now, those are the basic tools. Those are all you need. Like I said, a box cutter, a heat gun, and some glue will get you started in like your first props. Once you get the painting, obviously sealing it up. But all of these tools, you can get them at any any hardware store, and they're fairly affordable. The most expensive will be your Dremel, but that's after you start building some big stuff. The heat gun is $20. The respirator is $16. Any questions on tools? Yes.
Did you say 60 or 16?
16.
Okay.
Yes. Sorry, I understand I have an accent sometimes, and if you can't understand me, just go ahead and stop me. I'm very well aware of that. Okay. Now, have you guys used Pepicura? Are you guys familiar with Pepicura? So Pepicura is a software that takes a 3D object. Let's might as well pull it up. It takes a 3D object and unfolds it to two-dimensional so you can print it out and then take the patterns and start making your prop.
Can you spell that?
P-E-P-A-K-U-R-A.
P-E-T-A-A?
K-U-R-A. It's
Is it not up there?
here.
Pepakura, yeah. P-E-P-A. It's kind of like Peppa Pig, if you guys know what that is. I have a niece, so I know what all these shows are. There it is.
Pepakura. It's
You
you
totally
can make
could.
you can make anything. I've seen people make a full because it's this was originally made for paper making, so you print out the paper and then you make a paper objects, and people make like 3D objects from like even a character like Goku from Dragon Ball. They'll make it out of paper. I've seen people make Spyro the Dragon out of paper. So it's an incredible software that it's used for so many things, and we, as resourceful as cosplayers are, we've used it for our cosplay now. But yes, so back in the day when I started, this was our first big, because everything was made out of resin. My first armor was made out of resin, fiberglass. It was awful. It was big. It was clunky. But as we moved into foam, we started adapting the files to foam. As you can see, this is a Wolverine mask. The files will tell you what you need. It's like this file right here, this cutout, it's going to be your piece of the side. This is going to be the back of it. So you can click on it, and what we've done as we unfold them, we only take half of the file, the item, so that when you make your foam, your templates, you transfer them to the foam, you only have to flip them because they're symmetrical. So that way you save paper and you save all the stuff. But yes.
So how do you get the stuff on the program? Is there stuff preloaded on there, or do you design it yourself?
No, there's several ways. Once you download the software, you have the software. It's free for the viewing version one, where you can view, download, upload, and view, print out, whatever. But you can't save anything. The designer one, I think, is $30. But you don't need. I don't have the designer one. I just have. I download the templates that other people already use. For instance, this one I found it online. There's a lot of Facebook groups that have their own reservoir of files. The 405th.com, which is the Halo equivalent to the 501st of Star Wars. I am a member of the North Texas Regiment, and we have a database of all the Halo armors from Halo 1 to whichever one it's now, of all the armors, all the rifles, all the weapons, even the Covenant. And we even started to have another database for other costumes like Iron Man or Mass Effect or stuff like that. So if you guys even Google, hey, I need a Pipicura file for Iron Man, the internet will tell you, hey, here it is, download it, and then you just open it, and this is what it looked like. Now, they are different since, yes?
What was that group called?
The 405th? Okay. Yes, 405th.com.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, these are all unfolded by people. So if you were to find one and you unfold it, you will unfold it differently than I would. So this is, let me show you what a Brawley wig will look like. So it's more complicated, more complex. This one has a lot of spikes, obviously. But this was unfolded by another person. So it's a little different. If you... this is what I was talking about, Spyro. So they're all unfolded differently, and the internet is filled with these things now. You can even go to Etsy. Some people sell them for like $2, $3, which I did. That's what I did. Instead of making my own patterns, which would take me hours, maybe days, I went to Etsy and somebody had already unfolded. Was it the Captain Marvel for $2? So I have the file. I can just cut it out, start making, draw it in the foam, and start cutting and making it. But this is essentially what Pepicura is going to be for you. As you guys see, the helmet that's going by you, it was done by Pepicura. Those were the files. Let me see if I can file the file.
Now, granted, whenever you do download your Pepicura file, it's probably going to be in one size, and it's not a universal size. If you want to print it out and kind of make it all on paper first to get a rough idea of what the size would be, then you can start transferring that over into foam and making even bigger pattern designs. Because sometimes the Pepakura files, you have like these itty bitty tiny paper strips. You don't want to be handling all those tiny little pieces of foam, so you can definitely glue those pieces of paper together and make much bigger patterns, make the foam a lot easier to work with.
I couldn't find the Halo helmet, but this is the. I picked something more harder, but this is essentially for a paper module. As you can see, they have the flaps for you to fold and glue them. If you remove the flaps, it's now a foam essentially. What was I going to say? But yes, this is essentially what your Pepakura software is going to be for, to make the templates, to print them out, and make a helmet like that. Because there's no way somebody can make that out of hand. And so it's been ripped from the game, it's been rendered flat, so you can just cut them and start making them.
Yes.
Whenever you're cutting out the pieces, like for instance the Genji's helmet, the angle to actually put them together, is that mostly done at a 45-degree angle, or?
Mostly, and that's what we're getting next to once we start the building process. But yes, for instance, if you see here, this process is a sharp cut. So it will be recommended to do them at 1 at a 45-degree angle, so you would get that angle.
If you want an even more severe angle, you could cut both pieces of foam at that 45 degree, and that'll give you a really super sharp angle. But then that also leaves a really big seam that you might have to go in and fill with that quick seal.
Yes. Any more questions on Pepakura? Yes. Yes, so you can import a 3D object and then unfold it, but that's a whole art of itself. Because Pepakura has a way to unfold it by itself, but it just creates a mess because it says, here's the 3D object, it's a mouse. I'm gonna unfold it and there's spaces in between. So the software is gonna say, oh, you need to fold it here. You don't need that for your prop. So, and there's tutorials on how to unfold a model if you want to learn. But yes, you can import a 3D object. Yes.
You said that the designer one is $30. Is that a monthly subscription?
No, it's a one-time fee.
Okay.
So the only difference is the designer, the viewer, you can't save. So any changes that you make, so for instance, I can remove that and then I can, here, let me show you, split it. All right, so let's say I want several pieces. Instead of one large one, I can split it, or I can make it all into one and say I want that big piece. For some reason, let's say you want that. Now, you in the viewer, you can do that, and then you can print it. You can scale it. You can even scale to the change scale. You can scale up by 10%, scale down by 10%. So it'll make it smaller. And here, as you can see, you have the dimensions. So it's going to tell you 8 by 10 by 11. So you can do all the changes, but you can't save it. So once you print it and you close it, that's it. You'll have to do it again in case you messed up. The designer, I think it unlocks a few more options, and then you can save it. So that's what people do. The people that save it and then they put them out for sale. It's like, hey, I unfolded this file. And I'm talking about files like the whole armor of Mass Effect or the whole Iron Man armor or stuff like that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Okay. Now, back to the 45-degree angle that you said. When you're making your foam, like I said, you can use a box cutter to cut your thicknesses. The foam that we get, there's several different types of foams. You guys are mostly familiar with the interlock and puzzle one. That one you can get. They have them at any hardware store, but they are at the hardware stores. They're a little expensive. They're $35 for a pack of 6, I think. Harbor Freight has them on sale sometimes for $7 a pack of 4, and the most expensive I think is $8. But that foam it's not meant for cosplay. So when you heat it up, it releases a toxic smoke. So you want to do that either open windows or outside. And it's softer, so it will make your blade a lot duller. But it's also it's softer when it comes to cutting, but it's harder to take the shape because they're not meant to be shaped. They're just there to be flat. So if you heat it up, it's going to take more heat. It's going to take more work to get it into the shape that you want. Having that said, it still looks just as well when you finish the product. I'll show you 2 different pictures of what costumes are made out of each foam, and you guys can decide if you can tell a difference. The other type of foam, which is the one that it's picking up now, is TNT Cosplay. Is a store here in Irving. They have a brick and mortar of 183 and 12, but they sell the different thicknesses of foam from 2 millimeter to, I believe, 12. And if you guys see, the helmet is made out of 8 millimeter foam with 4 millimeter details and some.
Yeah, there's like 1 or 2 pieces that are just like 2 millimeter craft foam, and you can pick up a pack of craft foam anywhere.
Yeah, Hobby Lobby has a pack for like $5 for a pack of 10, or 99 cents for the black ones. Yes.
What material do you use for the visor?
The visor, I actually got it from a friend of mine. He's in Florida. He's Stony Props. He makes different props, and he makes the visors for that. So you get like a sheet of 11 by 5 or 6, and I just slapped it on there. Yeah. The gun that you guys are seeing, it's a Magnum that it's basically vaguely based on the Destiny hand cannon, and that one was laser cut. I laser cut all the pieces, all the little details, so you can see the holes. That's the only way you can get holes like that as a laser cut. But that one's using 2 layers of 10 millimeter EVA foam with details of 2, 3, and 5 millimeter. So as you can see, the more levels you add to your prop, the more details it's going to look, the more like a 3D object is going to look. And like I said, that foam, I got it in TNT Cosplay. It's a little more expensive than the regular puzzle mats, but they are specifically made for making stuff like this. They don't release the smoke. Yes.
When you laser cut, how much shrink do you?
How much shrink? I'm sorry?
Yeah, like how much is the foam going to shrink up?
It doesn't.
It doesn't at all?
No, the laser is a 1/10 of a millimeter, I think. Or a millimeter. I don't remember. But it's hardly any difference. Well, actually, no, I'm lying. It may be a millimeter because I tried laser cutting a whole armor, and it just messed up the scale. I couldn't put it back together to fit properly. That's what I. So it's a good question.
I didn't know about like heat.
No, heat doesn't shrink the foam. It closes the cells, but it does. How do I explain it? The corners. If you're trying to glue something together and you apply heat to it first, the corners are going to kind of bend. The angle is going to like get out of shape. So when you glue it, you will have a seam. But so I tried to apply the heat just to the outside layers so I can shape it, glue it, and then apply heat to everything else. Yes.
I was just wondering, with the props, I think they're making their way to this kind of stiffness corner, so I just
Oh,
wanted
okay.
to they can come back up to the back rows. I think some of the settings.
I think it's on the left side, so it should make its way. Sorry, but we'll get them to you. Oh, that's my train of thought. Where was he?
Do you want to tell them the mats are textured on one side?
Okay. Yes.
Back to the visor real quick. Was it clear plastic when you put it in, or do you have a method?
No, that it's the guy that sells them like that. So it sells them in different colors. That one's gold tinted, and when you flip it, you see a different color, like red, I believe. But he sells blue, black, red, purple. So it's Stony Props on Etsy. I think they're $19 for each visor.
And his visors are mostly reversible too, so if you don't like one side, you can definitely use the other side, and you can see through both sides just fine.
Yeah. Now she pointed something else that the EVA foam from TNT Cosplay, and I think some other stores are coming here to the U.S. They're smooth on both sides. So I prefer those when it comes to a prop, like the gun. When you're going to glue them together, they're going to be able to, not have any seams. While the other ones, it has the texture on the back. Now that works great for some people, like the Mass Effect has the texture. They just flip and it's like, all right, I have it done. But some people that's that's an issue. I don't find it an issue. It's on the inside most of the time anyway. So here, let me show you guys 2 pictures. So which one was it? This one. So between these 2 costumes, they're made from 2 different foams. Are you guys able to tell which one is the $10 one and which one is the TNT one? Yeah. So like I was saying, once the foam is painted, to me, it doesn't really make a difference which type of foam that you got. The perfect sell one is the Harbor Freight one. I got the packs for $7 each, while the Halo one is the other one, which is a little more expensive, but it's easier to work with. However, to me, they all look the same once it's finished. But it's also obviously a preference. So if you like working with the foam that is easier to work with and shape and cut, then definitely go with this type of foam. If you are in a budget, like most people are, I work a lot with this foam. So it still looks great to me. Sorry. Okay. Now, anything else you want to add?
Does anybody have any questions about foam so far?
EVA foam. EVA foam. That's all you have to do when you go to the store. Well, the hardware stores, they won't know what you're talking about. But the cosplay stores, EVA foam.
When you're cutting EVA foam and like using it cut at an angle, is there like a specific tool that you're using to get the exact angle that you want, or you just gonna hide it?
9 times out of 10, you can kind of manipulate your box cutter at whatever angle you need it to be, and they don't really have to be an exact science because the foam is so malleable and it'll kind of bend to your will. If you need a super sharp angle like that, I would definitely recommend turning your blade inwards and like kind of cutting the foam like this rather than trying to cut the foam like this, because if you're cutting it to the outside, it's a lot harder than cutting it to the inside. You have a lot more strength and control if you're cutting it to the inside, and then that way your angles will be fine. And you can always just like flip it if you need the other side.
To add to that, make sure your blade is always sharp.
Yeah.
Because if you're working with a dull blade and it starts tugging at you and you pull it, you can hurt yourself. Also, you can damage the foam. You can rip the foam. I see a lot of props that are using a dull blade and it just starts making these dents on the foam. That's when you know you need to sharpen your blade. So, also the tool. There is a tool to cut it at an angle. The TNT cosplay has one, and you can find it online as well. You put in the shape, the blade, you put it in the foam, and it cuts at a 45-degree angle. So you will always cut at a 45. If you're worried about that, you can definitely use the tool.
Yes.
Why do you guys laser cut instead of 3D printing?
So, good question. Because 3D printing right now, I saw a 3D printer that's making out of resin, so it's going to be able to print all your little details. However, it takes such a long time to print a piece. For instance, this gun that's going over here, it would probably take 8 to 9 hours to print that. And then you have to finish it sanding with a lot of sanding and then filling it in with primer in case you broke a little piece, or, it's a lot of work. It will be much more detailed and much prettier, obviously, but it takes a lot more time. Well, there's the cutting. If I put the piece of foam, that took me about 2 minutes to cut. So I designed the file in the computer, and then I went to laser cutter, imported, cut, and it did it in 2 minutes. So I was done with the prop building a lot faster. Yes.
Which laser cutter are you using?
So I was fortunate enough to have access to the Dallas Makerspace. They have some fascinating and impressive industrial size cutting machines. So if you guys aren't familiar with it, Dallas Makerspace is in Dallas, obviously, of I-35. I'm sure you can Google it, but it has It's a nonprofit organization that gives makers access to industrial-sized machinery, whether it comes to welding, laser cutting, woodworking. With a small monthly fee, I think it's $50 a month, but you have access 24/7. You can walk in, walk out, use whatever you want. Obviously, if people are using the machine, you have to take turns. So I was fortunate enough to have access to that, to be able to laser cut all the pieces that I needed. Yes.
How breathable is like wearing all that?
Not at all.
Have you ever done any like electricity work, like lights or maybe a fan?
Yes, the Halo. I used to work with the Halo. My first Halo armor, I had some fans on the helmet. A lot of people put fans on the helmet because it helps with keeping the visor from fogging. But I've gotten acclimated to the thing. I know that it's going to be hot, so I don't worry about it anymore. But it doesn't breathe. If you're going to wear a full suit of armor, be prepared that you're going to sweat, you're going to get hot, especially if you're wearing the undersuits. Like the ODST, I wear cargo pants and a long sleeve shirt, but the other Halo, which is great from Red versus Blue, I use a motorcycle jacket underneath to give it more texture and more depth. So that adds another layer of heat. Mm-hmm. Yes.
With 45-degree angle cutter, do you know how well it works on curves, or is that just like really good on straight lines?
No, it should work in curves. I think I've seen people because it's a little thing. You put in the blade in it, you put it on top of your foam, and then you can cut.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
The contact cement that you use to the contact cement that you use to attach foam together. Is it equally good for attaching foam to other materials?
Yeah.
Yes. Actually, yes. The can will tell you what it's good for. It's wood, metal, plastics, foam. I recently built a plastic box, and a friend of mine who was helping me guiding, he told me to screw in the detail that I had on top of it. I had run out of time, or I don't know, I just didn't want to mess with that, so I used contact cement, and it stayed there. I was like, okay, and the detail was made out of resin, and the box was made out of plastic, so it'll work with many things. And I just realized thanks for your question, I skipped the process of how to use contact cement. It's just a really important one. So when you're working with contact cement, like I said, try to do it in an open area with windows and ventilator and respirator. But what you want to do is I use a scrap piece of foam to dab it in the glue, and then put a layer on one of the sides and put another layer of glue on the other side. Let that dry maybe 10-15 minutes, and you want to do another thin layer, just thin layers. Just get it in there. You can tell once it's dry because it's not glossy anymore, and it's going to look a matte look. But once you got those two layers on, waiting 10-15 minutes, it tells you 20 minutes. I usually wait between 10 minutes or 15 minutes. But then just start grabbing the pieces, and with the glue on both sides, putting it together. But you have to be very careful, because once they touch, that's it. Your armor, that's where it's going to be. So it takes practice of figuring out how you're going to pull it on, especially if you're making long pieces, like a thigh piece. It's like you have to put 12 inches together. So it's a process, but it's very easy once you pick it up.
And if you're nervous about working with contact cement, definitely start with much smaller pieces. I use a lot of E6000 for my pieces because contact cement makes me super nervous. So E6000 will also bond to foam. It'll bond to other materials. So if you're comfortable using a different kind of glue, just make sure that you know the strength, what kind of stress that your prop or your costume is going to be under, and do some research, figure out what glue would work best for you guys.
And in social media, don't be afraid to reach out to other cosplayers, because many cosplayers are happy to teach. It's like, hey, I know how to do this. If you guys have a question, we'll point you the right directions. Like, hey, I can't find this foam, or have you seen a file? We're like, oh, there's this group. Go look in there. Facebook, there's a Pepe Cure group that they constantly upload their files. There's like, hey, I just made the Iron Man black noir, or here's the file for the helmet, or hey, there's the news, the wig for Goku. Go build it, and people. It's a different community, and it's just very full of very helpful people. Any more questions? Anything else that we skipped? Do you think?
We're moving on to the next process, I think.
Pictures. Okay. Once I lost the pictures. The no, I don't have internet, and so I had loaded the files before, and I forgot, and I switched over. So these are some of the props that I've built over the years. As you can tell, for instance, the Captain America shields have also that layer of the 2mm one, and the 10mm, the 10mm set, and the 2mm to give the details. Here. So that's the trident that I built for the Ocean Master. As you can see, you guys can see the lines, the little score lines. That's made by scoring the foam with your blade. So your sharp blade, you're gonna do a little cut. You're not gonna cut all the way through, not even halfway through, just a little cut. I don't know if this one had. No, that one doesn't have any details. But once you score it and you leave a mark, you won't be able to see that well. But when you apply heat, the foam will expand away from it and will create those little ridges. So it gives it another dimension without you having to add foam to it. Okay, this is good. The Saiyan armors, like I was saying, some of the props, some of the costumes out there have a lot of rounded edges to them. Saiyan armors being one of them. These are foam dowels. They came into the market a year ago from TNT Cosplay. So instead of you sanding your foam and making it round, you can already buy the dowels made out of EVA foam, and I just cut them in half and just glue them to the armor. Saved me a lot of nightmare. I'm sorry? So the dowels, as you can see, these little pieces, the rounded edges. They sell them in like 12 inches and 24 inches. That's not 24 inches. 24 inches. And I don't remember the price, but you can just cut them and put them in your armor, and it's another detail that you don't have to work on. Yeah.
So it's just a foam cylinder then?
Yeah, exactly. Foam dowels. Yeah, a dowel. Yeah. Yeah. Another type of prop. You guys saw this one. I forgot to mention, but were you guys able to notice that there's a PVC pipe in here? So the cannon is a PVC pipe covered in EVA foam. A lot of the props, like tridents and they use long sticks, they use a PVC pipe that you can get another hardware store. That's I think it's an inch thick PVC pipe that you just paint it, cover in EVA foam, and it gives it, that easy weapon look.
And it's a lot more sturdy.
It's a lot more sturdy than if you use foam or whatever. Yes.
If I were to make a scythe, like giant scythe for my body, will it still be stable, or should I?
So when you're building something like that, I use the PVC pipe all the way up to the top of the prop. So if your scythe is going to be a blade, have the blade cover the pipe. Not put it in the edge, because that way it will be a little flimsy. But the trident, let me see if I can show you. Where'd it go? Is this it? Okay. The trident, the PVC pipe goes all the way up to here. So that will give it a little more sturdy to this prop itself. Yes?
So go back to the other photos. That crown.
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I assume there's a seam on that somewhere, right?
Here? Or this one? This.
Like just in the.
Yes, it's on the back.
Yeah. Okay. And so there wasn't really a good way to hide it. You just had to put it in a place.
No, I just had to put it in a place. Most of the time, that's going to be your option, is because, like I said, most of the or most of the photos are going to be your front or whatever you want to make it for. You want to hide the seam as much as you can. The back is probably your best option. Yeah.
For the Dragon Ball armors and the Saiyan armors that we make, a lot of our seams are actually on the side because the front and back are equally detailed. So the fastening, how you get it on and off, is going to be that side piece. And it's a lot easier to hide it under your arm than it is to try and hide it in a back seam.
Let me see if I can find a better. So see, it's right here. That's where the seam is, but my arm is hiding it most of the time, so you won't be able to tell. Also, the 5-foot rule. There is this rule that it's amazing. The 5-foot rule states that if you can't see it from 5 feet away, you're great. It does not exist, and it's because when you're seeing the helmet up close, you're seeing a lot of open seams that you just can't see in a photograph, and it was, I don't know when the rule came about. It's like back when costume contests were just judging from far away, like the judges were here and your costume was there, I won't be able to tell the detail. Now they're doing a lot of prejudging, so they'll be able to see a lot of your details. But if you're doing a photo shoot, if you're doing a walk-on stage for showing your costume, if you can't see it from 5 feet away, the camera's not going to pick it up. Nobody's going to be able to see it, so don't beat yourself up trying to make a perfect prop because nobody makes a perfect prop. This armor, I was wearing it yesterday, and it looks good in camera. It looks good, but you can't see that the white is not painted correctly. The seams are breaking, like at the edge right here, there's a seam. Yeah.
That looks beautiful.
Thank you. See? It's awful in person to me, but it's like the camera, it looks good. So don't beat yourself up whenever you make a prop, especially if you're working on it for a long time and you're like, oh, this doesn't look good. It looks good. Okay.
Which one? Which photo?
Oh, show this.
You're supposed to see the 3 feet, the other, the middle.
This one.
I pictured it right,
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah, that was earlier this year at KamahaCon, the Irving Convention Center. Yeah, I know. That's yeah. Well, it's funny because
Better on him than the other two.
Thank you. It's funny because yesterday we were wearing this and I was getting so many compliments on the wig that our armors didn't matter. They're like, the wig. And I was like, but we also made armors. Yeah, and it's...
If you get those 3 people, the wig looks the best on yours.
Thank you. No, this one is cardstock, actually.
So it's straight out of Pepakura with
It's-
cardstock, and then once it was fully formed, he did 2 to 3 coats of wood glue, and that makes it like iron, basically. So it's not going anywhere.
So this is the file that I had. Let me
You
see.
showed me that earlier. That just looked nuts.
How do I... Okay. So, yeah. This one took me about 7 hours to put together. So, yeah, it's
Could have said any number and I would have.
took me 2 years.
I did my hair
Okay. So I guess I can show you guys an example of how the Pepakura unfolds it. But go back to that. The wig was made. I made it out of 100-pound cardstock paper. I printed it out. I went to FedEx. I just said, hey, can you print this file? They gave me a funny look. Okay, I'll print it. And I went home, cut it with scissors. Just cut the scissors, and then the paper, when it prints out with 2 lines, either a dotted line or a dotted dash line, which means either you fold it in or you fold it out. That's your key. Once you fold it in, you glue it together, and you start putting all the pieces together. I had the cardstock wig. All I did was applied a couple of layers of wood glue, let them dry in between, and it gave him that sturdy look, and just painted it. And I thought, like I was saying earlier, I thought it was like, oh, this looks, it looks bad. I painted it black, and it's like, but once I got to the conventions, people can't see the mistakes that I make and are saying this looks like an anime hair. I was like, okay. So you'll be surprised at what people how good your prop ends up coming. Yes.
How is that actually staying on your head? Are you just like sitting it on like a helmet and it's just magically staying there?
Everything's magic when it comes to costumes. No, the wig, since it has a gap in it, it will fall in my head. I put a piece of upholstery foam,
Okay.
so inside of it, so it rested on my head and over my ears.
So it's the same foam that's on the inside of the helmet. It's super soft, super squishy, and it'll just kind of keep everything in place.
So you didn't need anything extra like those little clips like in your actual wigs or anything?
Nah.
I didn't. Yes, I see somebody else raise a hand. No? Okay.
Does this program ever give you instructions on how to put it together, or you just
The website has a little bit of tutorial of how to play with it, but there are videos on YouTube which you can just Pipicura tutorial, and they're like, all right, this is the tools, because there are some for selecting, rotating the part, joining or disjoining, setting the edge color, a lot of tools that you have to look into them, but the tutorials will help a lot. I'm trying to see if I can find how to unfold it so you guys can see how it does it. But if you guys, oh, here it is. Never mind. So this is the automatic unfolding of the software. As you guys can see, you can't do anything with that. Okay, there's no way you can work with that. So the software says, oh, this is the perfect way to split it. This is how it's going to look flat. When I put it back together, it's going to look three-dimensional. But, well, it doesn't. So a lot of people go in and, oh, see, I can't do it because I don't have the designer version. But they start splitting it individually to what makes sense to a human. And that's why going online and getting the ones that are already made, it's a lot easier. And even if it's like $2, they did a lot of work for it, so I think it deserves the money that I pay them, so I can get the product that I can just get started on making the foam, the helmet. Any other questions? Yes.
Is there any kind of paint you would recommend for, like, just doing the props and stuff like that?
Okay. Good question. You're the painter.
Okay.
So.
You can use any kind of paint that you're most comfortable with. For larger projects like a head-to-toe halo armor, definitely recommend doing a base coat in spray paint, since it'll give you the most coverage and the least amount of time possible. For your fine little details, I prefer to use acrylics. That's what I have the most experience with. Some people prefer oil paints. That allows you a lot more working time. You can slap on a really thick coat of paint and then kind of brush it off with a paper towel, and it'll give you that nice aged, rusted look. For me, with acrylics, I prefer to work quickly. I prefer to have the ability to slap on layer after layer after layer, and acrylics will dry in like maybe 20 minutes if you use a really thin layer. If you use oil paints, it definitely allows for a lot more blending. You can get really nice even tones from color to color. So it all depends on what you want to make and how quickly or how much time you want to spend on the detail work.
Yes.
Is there any tops that would be good as like a starting, like to train on, or just go straight for what?
So a friend of mine has asked me the same question. It's like, if you're try making, I always tell them, it's like, make the smallest piece on your costume, but that's when people ask me about an armor, it's like, make the forearm. That's going to be the easiest part. For a prop, a sword, yes, sword or a knife. That's going to be your easiest one, because you can put a piece of pipe in it if you want it sturdy, or you can just cut it out of one shape. Draw it out on paper how you want the two-dimensional look, and then trace it with foam, glue it together, and you can add details to it. So if you want to start working with foam, how it feels, how to glue it, how to cut it, definitely make a sword or a knife. Okay, should we go to painting?
Do you want to talk about making your own patterns? Because we've just talked about it.
Yeah, we talked about Pipicura. So making your own patterns is a whole different process. We won't go too much into details. Are you guys familiar with Kamui cosplay? Kamui cosplay, yeah, she's she's in Germany, or
Yeah, she's German.
She's Germany. Her and her husband are a team that are making these extravagant costumes. But she has a video of how to make your own templates based on your body. So basically, you take that syringe wrap, the food wrap, the plastic that you wrap food, wrap it around yourself, whatever piece, either your chest, your arm, your shoulders, and then duct tape it. So you're making this essentially a shell of yourself, a mannequin. You cut yourself free, and then, or draw the shapes that you want to have in your armor and in your duct tape. Once you cut it out, you have your templates based on your size. She has a video of how she makes her armor. It's I think it's 12 minutes, but she makes the whole full body, head to toe, and it's very intuitive. Kamui, it's K.
AMUI.
Yeah. KAMUI.
Kamui Cosplay. Yes.
And her YouTube channel is absolutely incredible.
Okay, we can move into finishing the props. As you guys can see, there were two different types of paint jobs done in this one. This one was just a black coat of spray paint, and I used some metallic paint to draw some damage to it, like it was scratched. It gives it an additional dimension to your prop. This other one, I'd added some burn marks. It gave like, hey, it's been hit by, I don't know, dirt or a bullet or a fire, and then the metallic scrapes as well. But so the process when it comes to finishing is, once you have your prop finished, you're gonna heat seal it with the heat gun once more to seal it even more, and then the plastic dip, which is your first primer, either 1 or 2 coats or 3 coats. I use one thick one because I want to get it done at that point. 2 to 3 coats. Once that's dry, you can apply, if you choose to apply your primer, it's another spray paint. If not, you can jump into, a lot of the spray paints come with primer and paint. So like this one, after the plastic dip, I sprayed it with a purple spray paint. Once that was done, and it's ready, either you can go with your finish, like that finish, or you can go like the weather look, which gives it a little more, again, another dimension, another more details. So a lot of people do a black wash, which is basically a diluted black and browns. You put some water, and I think it's 2 parts water and 1 part black paint. You apply that to your prop. You soak the paint in, and then you wipe it off. So you're wiping off the excess paint, but you're leaving what's in the ridges, what you can't clean up. So it gives it that look that prop has been dirty. It's been out there, and you just can't clean that part. A lot of people use oranges and reds to give it a rusted look. So a lot of the Fallout, there we go. Fallout armors, they take some orange paintings and then just dab it into some of the spaces to give it that it's rusted. And the metallic look is, I use silver paint, which is acrylic silver paint from Hobby Lobby. I just grab like a 99-cent brush from Lowe's, grab it and just dab it on the edges to give it its other rays. As you can see, like if it's been hit by metal or whatever, the paint has been scratched off. And the black paint is, like I said, to give it a little burnt look. Any questions on that? Like she mentioned oil paints. A lot of people use the oil-based silver to give it that metallic look. It's a lot better. I'm gonna be honest. That makes a big difference. The painting makes a big difference. And once you're finishing a prop, the oil-based, when it comes to weathering your prop, it's gonna be a lot better than your regular acrylics, because you're able to manipulate this more and give you more work time. But yeah.
Also, when it comes to painting, there's a variety of different kinds of finishes of paint. So if you want your prop to look more matte, then definitely go for probably an acrylic-based paint or a latex-based paint. It'll help give you a more matte finish. If you definitely want it to be glossy, I would suggest an oil-based paint. Or you can definitely go in with a sealer. Like Mod Podge has spray sealers, you just and you're done. And it can make it either high gloss or matte. So depending on what you're going for most of the armors, we definitely opt for a glossy finish. Helps give it that shine in photographs and looks really, really nice when you walk out in the sun. So.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's basically how we make our props from start to finish. Getting the material, getting the tools, and then building it and then painting it. It's going to be the same process for all the props that you make, just depending on templates or what you use. And like I said, if you guys have any questions later on that you didn't think of, you can definitely reach out to me, WinRaven, on Instagram or Facebook, or even the website. I have a contact us form that you can just submit a question, be like, hey, I had a question. Could you help me out? And I'll be more than glad to point you to the right direction.
What's the name of the website?
WinRaven.com. WinRaven.com. Yeah. If you guys don't have any other questions, I think that was it from us. Thank you.
Now go make all the things.
Yes.